Hello and welcome to Birth Voice, a series of conversations giving voice to the hidden dimensions of birth and with that of a woman. No matter where you are in your journey, this is a space to remember the fullness of the woman that lives under your skin, to be inspired to unapologetically embody and celebrate your innate ability to conceive, birth and nurture not just children but magic on this planet. Here, we talk about birth, sexuality, pleasure, and shine light on the wise, wild, and innocently sensuous nature of being a woman. Birth Voice is brought to you by womenawakenings.com. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Birth Voice. My name is Stephanie. I am a birth doula, sex educator, and a tantric practitioner. And I am super excited and grateful that I finally made it to record this very first episode. And the title I have chosen is a subject that is deeply close to my heart: birth, sex, and the missing Aphrodite. So in this episode, I will be covering what is the missing Aphrodite and why did I feel this was relevant to even talk about. What are the implications that this has in our lives, and especially in matters that have to do with the feminine embodiment, so the exclusively female primal functions and the nature of being a woman. Of course, the missing Aphrodite also affects men, but for now I'll be focusing on the implications of that in the female embodiment. Also I'll be weaving in my own story and how come I came here sitting and talking to you about birth, sex, and Aphrodite and the nature of being a woman. As well as sharing tips on how to bring her back, how to fully integrate and embody Aphrodite and bring her back in our lives. So, where to start? I feel I will start by sharing a bit about my story and the connection of my story with Aphrodite. So, I was born in an island called Cyprus, which is said to be Aphrodite's birthplace. So my whole life, this archetype of Aphrodite and the name and the vibration of Aphrodite has been very prominent. So here in Cyprus, you find Aphrodite's baths, Aphrodite's birthplace, Aphrodite's temples, and I will hear about these stories of her. And through that, I would make an interpretation of who she was shown to be. She's said to be the goddess of love, eros, sexuality, and fertility. Also protectress of birth and nurturing. So here in Cyprus, you'll find the temples, and you also find remnants of the worship of Aphrodite that, of course, had changed forms throughout the years. And even though the island itself is mostly Christian, there are other religions, of course, but it's mostly Christian, so you can see the patriarchal domination of the church. But even though the Aphrodite's worship remnants are still prominent in the way she has been replaced by Mother Mary archetype. So you'd find churches that are devoted to Mother Mary as a breastfeeding mother, or worshipping Mother Mary in a way to wish to have a child, so like to heal infertility. So these are remnants that have remained in the island, that are coming from the ancient worship of the goddess Aphrodite. So despite these stories were so prominent in my upbringing, there was a huge contrast on the actual embodiment of this archetype in the women I would see around me. So I would see women that were mothers, that they're wives, and in a result of that, I have become like directed towards that path as well. Like, if you're here to be a mother and a wife. But what I would see in these women around me would be like, where is the woman? Where is the woman behind the mother, behind the wife? I would see them really starting to lose connection with their body. I would see them maybe putting makeup on or buying nice clothes, but not really connected and taking care of their body. And at the same time, in addition to this, there is still a big suppression and stigma around sexuality. So the patriarchal dominance, or like, let's say, religion, has come to demonize anything that had to do with the physical body, our flesh, our sensuality, our expression of that as an innocent aspect of the feminine, and portrayed that as something sinful, something dangerous, something that, for God's sake, don't have sex before marriage. And virginity as something that we lose, as something that is taken from us. And also regarding women, like, women were not allowed to have sex because then she's prostitute, but if men have sex, then they are celebrated. So there was this upbringing of differentiation between women being not allowed to be sensual, to be sovereign in their sexuality, whereas men were allowed as a matter of being more of a man. And I still hear this from my grandmothers, for example, in the way they think about women that wear clothes which are celebrating their sexuality, and other things that are still embedded so much in the culture. So growing up in a place like this, of course, I have absorbed a lot of these traits in myself, which at one point have come to become an inner conflict between my nature and what I was given as truth. So I went on to study genetics, medical genetics, because I was deeply interested in the human disease and understanding that at a deeper level. And then went on to study embryology, because fertility and pregnancy was always something I was interested. I would see a pregnant woman walking around, like, from a very, very young age, and I would be uninhibitedly going towards her and wanting to touch her belly, as if like there was a mystery there that I could feel but not fully understand why. During my studies in embryology, I got to learn more about the science of fertility, and I got to see the implications, like just the outcome. Wow, 1 in 3 couples are having trouble in one way or another to conceive a child. So this was really interesting to me, because it's not something I had considered before. And yet, when I actually went to find a job and to be an embryologist, there was something in me that was deeply saying to me that I am not here to be an embryologist. And despite I understand the science, despite I appreciate the support of the conventional medical system, I saw things that made me say, this is not for me. And that would be, I would see there was something behind what was presented as disease. And there was nothing that could take that out of my mind. I felt that that was coming out from deep, deep, deep disconnection from our nature, from our body, from what it means to be a woman. And at that time, I also was going through something really, really personal that shaked my world, which is I had a relationship breakup, which was very intense because, of course, I was fulfilling this story of I want to be someone's wife and I want to be in love and I want to be, and I'm with this man and I'm complete because of that. And with that, I also got pregnant. I was 23 at a time and I was still studying. And also my partner at a time. But inside me was that contrast of, wow, this is everything I ever wanted, and then was taken away from me. Soon after I had a miscarriage, which was intense by itself. We had a breakup. So that in combination with seeing disease and fertility and having lost a child and starting to dig into my own healing. And this is a big subject, which I would like to make a podcast just for that, because miscarriage is something that is not very often talked about, but it's actually very, very common. That's a side note. So let me get back to the story. So within that, so the combination of my own personal experience and seeing couples going for infertility treatments that I felt there was something beyond what was presented as disease made me actually decide to take the wheel of my own life and really, really discover what I'm here for. And when I say discover what I'm here for, until that age, I feel I was just following what the road path that was designed for me, meaning you go to elementary school, then you're going to go to high school, and from high school you're going to go to university, because when you go to university, then you study and you get a job. And if you get a job, then you're fulfilled for your life. Then you have a home, then you get married and you have children, and you're productive and helpful for the world. So my deeper calling was not met with that path. It wasn't the subject itself. So I love the subject of the science of fertility and the female body and anatomy, and I loved the subject, and yet the way it was given, it was not for me. So that in combination with my big pain that I was trying to find healing from took me into following my heart, really, really following that spark when I saw my whole world just crumbling in front of me. I don't have a man now. I don't have a child. And this job that I just keep looking at my watch all the time is not for me. So who am I around that? Who am I without that? Who am I without being a wife, without being a partner, without being the woman that gets a job? And who is Stephanie? So I really started realizing there is another compass, which is my heart. And this is another part of the feminine that is not usually encouraged, is suppressed, and is like a sidetracked because it's not valued enough. And yet that was my remedy.
So keep following unapologetically those callings that seem so irrational. Just finished university, finished Oxford. I had the golden carpet on my feet. Well, that's what I thought, but it wasn't that. And yet I'm choosing to start traveling and working on horse riding farms and babysitting and doing anything just like that was coming from this irrational space of my heart. So that decision, that commitment on following the thread of my own life, of my own destiny, took me, amongst other places, into a community where women were birthing at home with the help of midwives and doulas. That was the first time that I saw women being fully unapologetically in their power, being fully connected with their bodies. For example, nudity was one of the things that was there, and it was a natural thing to be naked, to be naked in front of others, and not that being something that is abnormal, but rather something which is natural. So women were deeply powerful, and from there I saw the effect of almost like a chain, starting from a woman choosing to live fully and unapologetically in her body, with her, in connection to her sexuality and sensuality, and how that rippled on the way she was choosing to give birth and the way that she was bringing up her children. Seeing those children literally lighting up and not being there, they were bright, they were wild, they were free, they were left free to experience, to learn their body, and to, instead of being told, don't go in front of don't go next to the cliff because you will fall. If you do that, this will happen to you. They were left to test their instincts. They were left to test this vehicle, which is the body. But the reason why they were left, there was a deep trust coming. Oh, they were climbing trees to eat mulberries, and like mulberries were all over their mouth, and then they were just washing the river, or it wasn't anymore a big deal having a child, because life for adults and for children was a playground. They were learning from each other. Adults were learning from the kids, and the kids were learning just by being around what the adults were doing. So when I saw that, something in me said, this is home. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. And how it was almost like I saw the big picture. I saw how the pieces of the puzzle have fit together, all starting from that woman, all starting from the decision of hers to be unapologetically connected to her nature, not denying any part of herself, not denying like the matter, her body. And then how from there, her decisions of being that woman, as well as being the mother, but being the mother is just one aspect of herself. And how that rippled into the upbringing of her children, and how those children were so radiant and free and wild. So that's where I decided I'm going to become a doula. I didn't know what a doula was then. And for those who are listening who don't know, doula is a woman who is supporting women throughout her pregnancy and birth. And it's a role that was born or reborn because of the highly medicalized system and the requirement for someone to take the role of more the psychosomatic and the more spiritual, also practical and informational, but also holding that vibration for the woman that, yes, you can give birth. Yes, I'm here knowing that you're the one giving birth. And I just hold this space for you to be that. So in short description, that's what a doula is. So I decided to become a doula, and I went on to study with Michelle Adend, who I absolutely love and support. And I was deeply grateful to be able to meet this beautiful being and to study with him. And from there, I went full on supporting birth. I feel so grateful that my initiation to be a doula happened at a place where there was no fear around birth. And the reason I'm saying that is just again going back to the disconnection of the missing Aphrodite, the disconnection of women from their bodies, from their nature, and the ripples that has in their daily life as a woman, whether that has to do with their menstruation, or whether this has to do with the way we are connected with our bodies, knowing our sexuality, knowing how we're meant to be touched, connected from the inside out, or whether that has to do with the way we choose our partner, the way we choose to conceive consciously, or the way we give birth, and then how we mother our children, and going all the way back into those being aspects of the feminine rather than just one role that we take and then forget the rest. I've always loved children. Like, I would see a pregnant woman and I would run to her since I was a child. Since I remember myself, I really wanted to be a mother. So this maternal instinct was so developed in me, maybe a bit overdeveloped, that needed to be balanced. And I'll explain why. And this weaves perfectly with what I was just saying, because if a woman is not brought up through all those initiations that make her a woman, so her menstruation, which is connected, of course, with honoring her body, not feeling ashamed in her body, her sexuality, her sensuality, her power, the power of her blood, the power of her being fully embodied, then she feels incomplete. She feels there is always something missing. And this is what I always used to feel. I used to feel that I wanted a man to complete me, to feel that warmth. And of course, I don't deny the warmth of a hug, and I still adore men. And I am deeply longing to meet my partner, but it comes from a space of deep connection to myself, to my wholeness, from a love and my connection with my divinity, of that union within myself, rather than I'm looking for someone to complete me. I am looking for validation. I am looking to be satisfied sexually from outside, and therefore going for experiences that are less than what I deserve. So, missing Aphrodite, again, the aspect of the unintegrated feminine that I've never been told. I was never taught as a woman. So, that is the aspect of the woman which is connected with her and herself that never goes. My path then led me into study Tantra, which was another big stop for me. Because it really started as a direct transmission. So being here on this land and literally keep following this thread that was the thread of my life, and really hearing like you have to return back to Cyprus, and I'm like, I'm not going there. Like, I feel so shrunk there. I feel like I'm not able to be the fullness of me. I am judged because I didn't feel free. I felt like my sexuality, I had to always close up because I was dangerous to be sexual, to be celebrating myself as a woman without that meaning that I'm inviting a man in, because I am allowing myself to celebrate myself through my clothing and fully owning that dress. I'm not a slut, or I am a slut, and that's sacred. That's a different story, which is actually connected to the archetype of Aphrodite, the sacred prostitute, the sacredness of her expression, of her sensual expression of something that connects her to herself and the divine, or something bigger than herself, rather than just that thing that is shameful, that thing that is dangerous to own. So the study of Tantra started for me through direct transmission. I would see visions of ancient Egyptian women. Cyprus is so close to Egypt, and there is an interconnection between Isis and Aphrodite, and like the rituals that have been happening in the area. And in that study of Tantra, I always say, this was a remembering. It was a remembering. It wasn't something I learned. It's something that is deeply connected to who I am. I've met my soul. I've been doing this for centuries. So through my own experience, first with the connection of my sexuality and my body, and my yoni, which in Sanskrit it means temple, which is translated to the vagina and the vulva. So the connection of this and reclaiming those parts of myself as sacred. I was then led to study Tantra and study tantric healing. So I now support women and couples to reclaim back their sexuality, heal from trauma, which is, by the way, this collective wounding, which is how I started this podcast, by the way we absorb these archetypes of what it means to be a woman, are deeply engraved in us. And even though one may not have had a direct sexual abuse, let's say, we all hold traces of that is less of what we are naturally meant to embody as women. So through that, and my work with pregnancy, I started seeing how the disconnection from a woman, her disconnection with her body and her sexuality, her primal nature, was actually making birth more difficult. I saw that a lot of problems in birth, which is something that I would definitely talk more about in other podcasts, is the fact that she can't turn off her mind and tap into her body. So switching off from that thinking brain into her primal brain, and really allowing herself to surrender, really giving in to that woman inside herself that is birthing. So if you are listening and you like to experience a meditation, head on to my website, which is www.womenawakenings.com, and there is a free meditation there for you that guides you into your primal nature. Whether you're pregnant or not, whether you have given birth or not, it just guides you to connect with your primal nature. So you can use that if you want. Okay, so I studied Tantra, and I started making women's circles because I felt that 9 months were not enough for women to break through those barriers that we have been given, to really reclaim back their essence, their fullness, whether that is through their sexuality or their voice, or the way we judge our bodies and each other. the way we say yes to anything that is less than what we deserve, whether that is like a sexual experience or a partnership or even, just a meal in a restaurant, or even deeper things like my birth, like the birth. I see a lot of women in my work that would say yes to things that they don't fully desire or feel right for them just because they were given that, and because we haven't learned to really listen and act from our own inner authority as a woman. So yeah, bringing the voice back to the woman, especially for things that have to do with the exclusively female body functions, such as birth, sex, and a lot of the mysteries that are deeply connected to the woman, like her menstruation. So lastly, what I want to share is, how do we reclaim Aphrodite? How do we bring her back in our lives? So first, I would say is acknowledging her. Acknowledging, oh, there is this part of me, of the collective, that is missing, that has been missing from my experience, and that which I call the woman within me, behind the partner, behind the girlfriend, the mother. That is the woman. That's what I call Aphrodite, the connection to that very, very deep part of me, the woman under my skin, which is always there. So with all her phases. So one other thing that I would suggest is to really look deep into the collective wounds around our collective wounds around intimacy, sexuality, sensuality, and really see, like, do I feel shame around my sexuality? Do I judge women that are empowered in their sexuality? What's my relationship with other women? Do I feel jealous? Am I loving my body as it is? Or am I absorbed by the Maya of how I'm supposed to look like in terms of media image? How is my body feeling? Do I have hormonal imbalances that are affecting my menstruation? Mood swings that are either like my emotions are deeply suppressed and then exploding? How am I embracing this very nature of me as a woman? So looking into those, and if you're listening and you're like, what is she talking about? How do I do that? I would say, yeah, first of all, just by listening to this internal calls, like, how is my body? How is my emotions? How is my mind? How is my mindset around this? But also ask for help, ask for support. If you want some support, this is what I do, and I'm so happy to support you. So really, you can contact me on that. I really help people, women, to unravel the medicine from their journey and heal their collective wounds or parts of themselves which have not owned. So this brings me to another point. What parts of my experience have I not owned? Where have I given my power away, or I let my power being taken? So whether that is a sexual experience that I didn't want fully, or at my birth, did I feel I own my birth? Did I feel I was the center of that scenario? Or did I feel like my inner nature was in conflict with what I experienced? So what parts have I given away my power where I didn't have a true voice? That's another one. And a practical one, I would suggest, start by acknowledging your womb. Really, it may sound like, how do I do that? But it really is connecting with your breath and your intention to focus on your womb, on your body. When you're eating, when you're having a shower, Usually when we're eating, we're doing hundreds of other things, answering messages, answering emails, talking to other people. And yes, that could be a social thing, but am I really stopping to smell my food, taste my food, chew my food and swallow? Or am I just not there? So this is sensuality. This is the embracement of this physical body through my senses. And it brings me right there into the present moment with my breath and with my intention. And then having a shower. Am I just having a 5-minute shower, just in and out rinse? Or am I making that as a ritual, even if when it's 5-minute shower? So that means when I'm there, I'm allowing the water to drop down my skin and I feel it. And with that, it rinses not just my physical body, but the whole day out of me. So that's another one. And yeah, you can visit, as I said before, my website, and there is a free meditation on how to access your primal nature. It's my deep desire to allow Aphrodite to be awakened and to reclaim her essence back in our lives, not as something we judge anymore, but as something that is deeply necessary for the future of our species and our experience as women on this planet. So yeah, we talked about birth, sex, my own story, how I came here to be feeling the need, as first of all, my personal need to create a legacy that stays, a legacy that is for my daughters and the daughters of my sisters to hear and to have in their disposal. Yeah, first of all, I do this for the children. I want to see children that don't forget their connection. And I saw my part of this being that I have to return to myself, to my integrity, to my sovereignty as a woman, unapologetically embodying my fullness and my authentic nature, unraveling the medicine from my own journey, and then holding space for other women to do the same. And from that space of a collective healing and owning of ecstasy as our birthright, then forming heart and womb-based connections with each other as sisterhood and with our men, if that's our sexual preference, or anybody that we choose to connect with, and birthing the new world, not just children, but magic on this planet. Thank you so much for listening.
If you have enjoyed this show and you want to support the vision of seeing more women who own their births and unapologetically embody their full nature, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave me a review. I would also love it if you share this with your Instagram and Facebook followers, because this creates more opportunity for other people to find the show, and this way we hold this vision together as a community. If you'd like to join me for updates and inspiration, you can do that at my website, which is www.womenawakenings.com. Until next time.